Questions involving angles of elevation and depression are actually pretty straightforward, but you need to make sure that you always draw a picture for these. Most of these sorts of questions are worded ones. For example, they'll say somebody's standing on the top of a cliff, at which point you draw the cliff and the person, and they look out to sea and see a boat or something floating on the water. And it might say the angle of depression. Now, depression means going down. So if you start a zero angle of depression is just going straight out from wherever you're looking. An angle of depression will go down from there. An angle of elevation, as the name suggests, is elevating. So that's looking up from the ground. So if they say an angle of depression of 40 degrees from the person's eye to the object that they're seeing. Now, there's a way you can get tricked here. Very easy to accidentally label this as 40. So what you've got to think of is the person's eyes looking out horizontally. The angle of depression is actually this one. So if that angle of depression is 40 degrees, then when you go to complete your trick question, it might ask you something about how far away the object is from the cliff. So you'll actually want to find this, and it might tell you how far away the person's eye is from the object. Maybe it's 200 metres. And they'll ask you to find this distance. You need to be really careful. This 40 degrees doesn't help you unless you put it in the right place. Now you've got two choices. See these as parallel lines and say if that's 40, these are alternate angles and this one's 40. We're assuming also this is a right angle triangle. Or say if this is 40 degrees and this is a right angle up here, then this must be 50. So then you've got two choices about how you're going to set up your log equation to answer this question and find x. You can either use this 50-degree angle and say I've got opposite and hypotenuse. So opposite and hypotenuse means sine, and you could say the sine of 50 degrees equals x over 200. So to get x by itself, multiply both sides by 200. So we have this. Or you could use the 40 degrees down here and say I've got adjacent and hypotenuse, so I'm going to need to use cos. Cos of 40 degrees equals x over 200. So x will equal 200 times cos 40. Now what you're going to notice here is that these are different, but they're both going to give you the exact same answer. And that's because the sine of 50 degrees and the cos of 40 degrees is exactly the same thing. And if you think about it, that makes sense. As soon as you've got a right angle, these two angles here are always going to add up to 90, aren't they? And the adjacent angle to one of them will always be the opposite angle of the other. And since sine and cos are both over the same hypotenuse, you're going to end up with that situation.